Which country will start WW3? Why?
The Balkans is so last century. My money is on Africa, the Balkans for the modern world. It's bigger, has more ethnic and religious groups that hate each other, is chock full of natural resources, and is constantly on the verge of famine and water crisis. If I want to go double or nothing, it'll be Ethiopia and Egypt that kick it off within the next decade over water shortages in Egypt caused by the Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia. China and India have no first-use policies, thank goodness. Pakistan is the only state in the region that has threatened use of nukes in response to conventional warfare. So, by historic precedent, a Pakistan misadventure against India would likely start the first nuclear war. This would likely be as another high on testosterone low on strategy mini invasion of Indian Kashmir, like on Kargil in 1999. Probably another rogue general, pissed at having been passed over for promotion. Per Indian doctrine, counterattacks will occur with armored strike corps, in sectors bordering Rajasthan and Punjab. Pakistan will shit a brick at this, and chuck a bunch of tactical nukes at the massive Indian armored columns advancing on Lahore and Karachi. India will likely not respond with nukes, but will launch conventional cruise missile strikes on Pakistani strategic nuclear facilities to preempt an eventual Pakistani strategic strike on its cities. Easier to target as less mobile than tactical nukes, wiping out most of Pakistan's strategic nuclear arsenal. All this while, the PRC would exert increasing pressure on India to de-escalate with Pakistan. They will take the opportunity to try and annex eastern Ladakh and what they call southern Tibet, while India is dealing with Pakistan. Border skirmishes will escalate to undeclared war between the PRC and India. Pakistan would launch its remaining nuclear weapons, taking out 3-4 smaller northern western Indian cities unprotected by anti-ballistic missile systems. The Indian strategic nuclear retaliation would wipe out Pakistan's military facilities and leave Pakistani cities facing terrible nuclear fallout. The PRC would likely start chucking heavier stuff at India at this point, short of nukes, as it has large investments in Pakistan, and they would rationalize a large border war by saying India had attacked Chinese interests abroad. As China did that, they would receive pressure from the other Quad powers in the Pacific. This would provide them the casus belli to take Taiwan by force, dragging in the US, Japan and Korea, and the Five Eyes countries. WW3. I've read a fiction book that had similar start to WW3. Conflict between India and Pakistan remained local, but involved several nuclear hits from both sides. This was shocking, but at the same time created a precedent of using nukes in a modern war and not destroying the world. Some years later, energy crisis amplified tensions between countries, and somebody made a power play for the biggest remaining oil deposit. Most countries backed off, but China was having none of that shit. Then it was a chain reaction and boom, everyone's dead, except for a handful of bunkers. Edit. Book name is The Ancient Catastrophe by Sergei Tarmashev. It was written in Russian, but I don't know if it was ever translated into other languages. Makes sense. The only part that would change at this point is where the Chinese would get involved. The India-Pakistan fight would be less likely to remain localized, due to the significance of KFEC, the amount of cash China has thrown at that project, and the amount of Chinese manpower in Pakistan to support that project. Those are all developments in the last 10 years, so it's understandable why a book wouldn't account for them. India is now much more likely to face a two-front war if all-out war occurs with either Pakistan or China. However, as a consequence, Pakistan is also less likely to make terrible strategic blunders like Kargil, or Op Gibraltar and Op Genghis Khan that result in war. China will have reminded Pakistan that the price of being closer allies, that is Pakistan being a vassal to China, would drag China into Pakistan's wars as well. They will keep reminding Pakistan that if they play stupid games they will win stupid prizes. Austrian here, we will do it again probably. I would like to say sorry in advance. Most plausible reason at the moment is because Germans eat schnitzel with sauce on top, then this conflict will spiral out again into WW3. Thoughts exactly what they want you to think. Recently I broke into the Swiss embassy in Turkmenistan, the natural place to store plans for world domination. They have a 5-step plan. Step 1. Become fully neutral. Retract from world politics. Step 2. Make a lab to create super soldiers and secret facilities hidden in the mountains. Step 3. Form an alliance with the lizard people that live under the earth. Step 4. Wait around 400 years to lull every other country into a false sense of security. Step 5. Launch a surprise attack along with the lizard people to take out every government in the world at once. Then send diplomats to communicate with army leaders to offer them extreme wealth. Then send in the conventional troops to secure the world. The Swiss are going to take over the world with their lizard people any day now. Beware. Can you imagine, you're sitting on a bench next to a bunch of pigeons, then suddenly they look towards the sky and say, "Sufficient data has been collected. Mission complete." And then they and every bird flies toward the sky. Edit. Changed pigeons to pigeons. I see no downside to the Swiss taking over the world. Efficiency, finance, chocolates, finely crafted watches and world-class yodeling? I, for one, welcome our new Swiss overlords. Canada loves maple syrup so much that we have a strategic maple syrup reserve. And the largest maple syrup robbery in Canadian history was someone heisting that reserve. Yes, it was a maple syrup heist. It's true, look it up. And how exactly does a unified empire work when the speed of causality and communications across the universe is such that it takes 4 years to communicate from star A to star B? Unless they're millions of years old and made out of iron like the Transformers. Space magic. I mean, it's been a while since I read it, but I'm pretty sure the answer was basically space magic. There's a group of people who are Dutch, speak Dutch, and live in Dutchland. To the west of them, there's a group of people who are Netherlandish, speaking Netherlandish, and live in the Netherlands. The English came along and told both groups that they're wrong. Maybe I'm whooshing, but we get German from a Latin word for it. Since Germany is so centrally placed in Europe, there was a lot of interaction with different cultures, but the Germanic groups were not yet unified under one name. The Romans knew of a group whom they said lived in Germania. But in German, Die Germanen is a broader concept around peoples and languages. All the old Germanic tribes, from Goths to Anglos to Saxons to Swedes to Austrians. A much more general term, kind of like Celts. This old idea. I think the bigger question is, what would World War III look like? Would it be proxy wars? Would it be full traditional warfare? Just decide over a League of Legends tournament. It's as toxic as a nuclear war, but at least no one is dying. Took me about 200 games before I learned you can unpin the camera. To add to this, I play EverQuest back in 2002 and got to level 54 before I realized you can scroll out of first person. South Korea and the US have a mutual defense treaty. So, if some shit happens with China, I think we're set. The US player will just type Tiananmen Square massacre in the chat, which will kick the Chinese player and give them the win. I do not know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Technically the war still isn't over. And humans actually gave up the first attempt. went back to try again, and also again had to give up. So 2-0 emus. I don't think the world can handle another world war. Simply for the sake that we're all so interconnected. Every major nation trades with each other and